Well, Rami Khouri is a journalism professor at American University of Beirut and senior fellow at the Harvard Kennedy School. He joins us now by Skype from Boston. Thank you for your time. What do you make of this resignation and the government staying on in a caretaker role? Is this a step in the direction of substantive change, or are we just going to see more of the same?
It would normally be more of the same because this has gone on for years. But this is a different moment. This is really a historic turning point, I believe, in the modern political governance of Lebanon. And it's just at the beginning. It's going to take months or perhaps more than a year or two to play itself out. What happened was they tried, the ruling power elite, the oligarchic sectarian group of men who've ruled the country with an iron fist and driven it into the ground for many years, tried to put in the Hassan Diab government as a way to throw some, symbolic gestures to the protesters who've been on the streets since last October, and it totally failed. The Hassan Diab government has not only itself discredited itself, it has discredited the whole system. It has brought down the credibility of the presidency, the parliament, even Hezbollah and other groups that people had not criticized too much in the past. So there's a new moment of political contestation in Lebanon, and the moment started literally last October, but it reached a new peak last Tuesday with this explosion in the port. And people would tell you, well, it doesn't matter if there's a government or no government, because there really hasn't been a government for many years in Lebanon. Look at how the country has essentially collapsed economically and politically and socially and environmentally. And now this bomb that the government knew about for the last, explosive material that the government knew about for the last 6 years and did nothing about it. So the question is, will there be a serious negotiation now between the established political elite, which is almost totally discredited, except for Hezbollah, which is the strongest party in that group, and it's the one that has propped up all the other ones, the Hariris and the Hounds and the Jumblats and all the other leaders. They were in government because the Hezbollah power essentially gave their consent and supported them in parliament. Will there be negotiations now with the protesters? Will they create a mechanism to clarify their demands? Their demands are very clear. They want a transitional emergency government to handle economic stabilization, address the needs of poor people, come up with a new electoral law that's non-sectarian, elect a new parliament, elect a new president, address the corruption issue, and hold accountable all those people who have stolen, they claim, tens of billions of dollars over the last 10, 20 years. Those demands are very clear all across the board from the protesters. What they haven't done is create a mechanism to force the government to meet them either halfway or more than halfway. In Sudan, the protesters did that, and now they're in a transitional process, the protesters in Sudan with the military, and addressing these issues together, which is kind of fascinating. Will Lebanon go through something similar? We'll have to wait and see, but this is a different moment than the traditional one government goes out and another government comes in. That's not going to happen, I don't think.
OK, you sort of asked the question now there. I'm hoping you can answer it. Do you think that the political elite will be able to, or politicians will be able to appoint a new government who will engage with protesters, who will hold elections, who will put in place a transitional emergency government? Do you think that will happen?
That's going to depend on the negotiations, the power dynamics between the protesters, the masses of Lebanese who support the protesters. And we know this from credible polling in Lebanon, that something like 70% of the population supports the uprising that started last October. They want all of these political officials who run the country for the last 20 years, they want them all out. The whole system has failed, and the explosion on Tuesday was the culminating dramatic affirmation of that. And even when the explosion happened, the government was nowhere to be seen. Hardly anybody said anything. They didn't do any cleanup. It was unbelievable. They're waiting for other people to come in and give them money. So I think there will be a new pattern of political engagement between there are essentially, I believe, two now main forces in Lebanon. One is Hezbollah and its very close allies, but Hezbollah is the key one. And the other one is the protest movement or the revolution, as they call themselves. And these are all kinds of people, but they do represent a majority of the population. They will have to agree on whether the transitional government that comes in is a serious reformist government, clean people, efficient people that can get the support of the international community, do a quick deal with the IMF. It's amazing that Hassan Diab's government has had 4.5 months and has done zero with the IMF. It's even worse than zero. It's alienated the IMF so that the IMF in public ridicules Lebanon, essentially saying, look, if you guys want to make money and you want us to help you, you better get serious and give us some real credible financial figures. So a transitional government has to do 3 or 4 critically important and urgent things at once. My suspicion is that there is going to be a hybrid government that is going to be formed that has enough emergency powers defined narrowly to address a few critical issues, not everything in the country. So, for instance, it won't deal with national defense and stuff like that. So I think there will be a hybrid form of transitional governance in Lebanon coming up, and it has to be done quickly. They can't wait 6, 7, 8 months as they used to do in the past. They can't play the games that the political party leaders used to play all the time. The 70% of the Lebanese or so are poverty-stricken. Very few people have jobs anymore. The economy has completely ground to a halt. The people can't get their money in the bank. There's no electricity. I mean, this is
hundreds of thousands are without homes. Thank you so much. We have to leave it there for time.
Homes, yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. Rami Khouri there, journalism professor at American University of Beirut. Thank you.